It's great to be here with you guys. I know how important Social Security is. He said we'll bore you to death. I'll do my best to be as exciting as possible about this really exciting subject. All right. The next class, improving your credit score, obviously a very important one as well. So I think it's cool that the bank puts this on. Housekeeping for me, if anyone can't hear in the corner, just give me one of these and let me know. I'm happy to slow down, speak up, etc. I want to make sure this is valuable to everyone. As Breck had mentioned, if our slides will move. There we go. Technical difficulties right off the bat. Good start. As Breck mentioned, today we're going to talk about Social Security specifically. I'll sort of start off with the need to have these kind of conversations. It's important to everyone's retirement. Most people in the room are going to be affected by Social Security in their life, in their retirement, right? So it's an important subject because it affects so many of us. So first, we'll kind of point out the need. Secondly, as the title slide here implies, we're going to go through some steps to planning a successful retirement, specifically with Social Security, but even a little bit more broad than that, in talking to financial professionals, talking to Breck, consulting someone who knows what they're doing. And then again, at the end, Q&A. I take no offense if you raise your hand and ask questions throughout. That'd make my job easier, so I'm absolutely happy to answer any questions. Again, my name's Will. You can even just yell at me if I don't see your hand up, all right? I'll take no offense. All right, so again, I'm going to start off by sort of talking about the need for this discussion today, I guess. Why are we talking about Social Security today? And in even more broad terms, kind of your retirement. So first off, planning for retirement seems really challenging. It's this like big hairy monster we look at for 20, 30, 40 years as we work. And as we get closer, we need to build a plan for it, right? We need to know what we're working towards. There's a few things to consider. We've got a few listed on the slide here. The first, income, and I kind of break this down into two areas or two timelines, if you will. Right now, most of us might be in the working phase where we've got a job, a career, and we're taking income in, right? So we might be in that phase where we're building our retirement. As we look ahead to kind of the time where you're claiming Social Security, it's usually where you're done working. And we've done the 30, 40 years of work working towards this retirement goal that I mentioned. And now it's time to turn that into income as you've saved and worked throughout your whole life. So the income consideration is both while we're working right now and as we're retiring, and hopefully sooner than later for all of us in here, turning that wealth into income. The second is accumulation. So this, again, is that phase before retirement. The different ways of accumulating wealth and the different accounts, devices that they can be held in. We work to fund our retirement, and we need to plan for kind of how this accumulation needs to grow even during retirement. For example, inflation. We'll touch on inflation a few times tonight. I know it's kind of a hot button topic right now. I promise it won't be conflictual. There will be no conflict. And then legacy. So legacy is really important. To some people more than others, but this is something that a lot of people think about. As they're nearing the end of our life and it's time to pass on, knowing our loved ones are taken care of is something that's pretty top of mind. So having a plan for that legacy is definitely a consideration in retirement. And lastly, protection. And I'm not just talking about protecting the funds that we've grown, again, as we've been working our whole lives. It's when you're in retirement and drawing down, what if you live longer than planned? Having protection from that, not running out of money, for example, and planning for kind of the unexpected, things like healthcare, long-term expenses, for example. So as I was preparing for this presentation today, this slide really caught my eye, and these statistics specifically were surprising for me, how high the numbers were, at least for that first one. So two statistics to look forward to. 77% of Americans have no formal retirement plan. There's nothing in writing. It's, again, kind of like this black box, this big hairy monster that we know we're working towards, but don't actually have a plan for. So that's 3 out of every 4. I mean, as we look around the room, it's well attended. But that's, maybe 30 or 40 people here that just don't have a formal retirement plan. That was surprising to me, but I think it's, again, just because it's not something we've sat down, planned with our spouse, our family, someone like Breck to have in place, and that's so important. The second statistic was less surprising, but I think important. 55% of Americans are worried they will outlive their retirement savings. This is a very reasonable fear, right? Who knows how long retirement will be? There's always surprises in retirement, whether it's healthcare, a new home, things like this. But to me, these stats should not exist in the same world, right? If 55% of us are scared that maybe we'll outlive our wealth, why not create a formal plan with a financial professional to know how things are going to look throughout our, hopefully 20, 30 plus year retirement. And again, this really goes along with kind of that outliving your wealth, longer lives, higher costs. The title alone of this slide, I think, kind of tells the story. But 1 out of every 3 65-year-olds today are going to live until 90 years old. And 1 out of every 7, so a fair amount, will live to 95 as well. So 65-year-old today, living until 90, that's a 25-year retirement. Again, this points to the need to have a plan in place, have protection in place, income like Social Security plans, to make sure that we're not outliving those retirement expenses. And then that stat on the right, I think, is also surprising, but also important. For a 65-year-old couple, if they live 2 years longer, you can expect to have about $100,000 more of healthcare expenses, and that's in just 2 years for this couple, right? That's that longevity planning that is just important to plan for, to say the least. I said we'll talk about inflation. I promise I won't hammer on it too hard, but I think it's important to look at. Honestly, by now, I think this graph is underestimating how inflation is going to look. For me personally, my wife and I, he mentioned, moved from Iowa to Denver earlier this year. We're renting right now to get a kind of a lay of the land, and then hopefully buying soon, but inflation makes that really, really hard, right? I mean, I look at that 1970, a house cost $26,000. That'd be really cool for me right now. Honestly, even the 2000 number of 207 grand feels very, reasonable. The numbers I'm looking for are much higher than that today. And you see the estimates for the average home price in 2030. Again, at the rate that we're looking at right now, it might be even higher than the numbers on screen. I don't think I even need to mention gallon of gas, gallon of milk. Everyone is feeling it when we go to the gas pump, when we go to the grocery store, and it's hard to avoid. That's why these kind of conversations are necessary. So we've set the need a little bit, but why Social Security? Why is this so important? Why are we taking, I'll spend maybe 15, 20 more minutes on this. Why is this necessary? For starters, again, I mentioned it affects everyone, and I don't think many people optimize their Social Security. So optimizing your Social Security is something that can change your retirement for the better. That quote right there, most Americans claim their benefits too early and they're shortchanging themselves. Over $100,000 or more in benefits that most people shortchange. I took a note here. Research shows only about 4% of people make a claiming decision that gives them the highest lifetime benefit possible. If we're talking about optimizing our Social Security, only about 4% of people do that. And most Americans, again, they do it too soon, and they're leaving about 100 grand on the table. That's a significant amount of money. So the 7 steps, this is going to kind of be what we walk through here over the next 15 to 20 minutes. This, I think, is kind of the bulk and most important part of the presentation. We'll spend more time on some of these steps than others because there's some that are more general, affect all of us. Other of the 7 steps up here maybe don't affect everyone, so I don't want to maximize our time on that. And again, I would say this is more guidelines or a roadmap. It's not one size fits all. Everyone in here has a different life, a different retirement journey. So I can't say that it's going to be the exact same plan for everyone in the room. That'd be unwise. So first, we mentioned we're going to break some myths down. We've worked hard our entire life. Why would we leave money on the table without optimizing our Social Security? So deciding when to retire is typically an emotional decision. And it's really easy to let our emotions take over where we should allow logic to make the decision. So 3 myths we have on screen. The first, the Social Security Administration will help me decide, right? What to do, how to plan, when to take it. If there's a couple, when one spouse should take it versus the other. This isn't totally untrue. There's a website, Social Security, I wrote it down. So SSA.gov, Social Security Association.gov. So they will offer some help. But let's say you called the Social Security Administration. They're actually told not to give advice. It's purely informational because the liabilities that offering advice would open up, right? If they misguide you, then that opens themselves up for liability. So to say that they're going to give you information or help you decide, per se, is probably unfair or untrue. So that's myth number 1. The second, all I have to do is claim benefits when I'm ready for them. I wish it were that easy. But, I mean, I'd love to be ready for my Social Security benefits right now, and I haven't even qualified. We'll get into the qualifications later, but it's just not that simple. And the third myth, Social Security won't provide me a significant portion of my retirement income, right? That's a myth, but also true. So I'd say it's a half myth, if you will. The The reason I say that, so Social Security is not supposed to be your only source of income when you're done working. You know, we've saved up, we've got different retirement accounts, things like that. But it is a significant portion, and if you can maximize it, it can be a very tax-efficient portion of your retirement income, a guaranteed retirement income, right? One that you can't outlive. All things that are very important.
Will,
Yeah.
can I add one more myth?
Yeah, I'll go back to that slide. I need to write it down.
Anyone in here worried about the claim that Social Security is going to run dry? Go ahead, raise your hand. That is a common misconception. Here's some facts about it. If Congress does nothing between now and it was 2034, before that was 2035, so sometime in between 2033 and 2034, they're saying if we do nothing, then retirees who are retiring in those years could get a 20% reduction in benefit. That doesn't mean it's going away. It just means it could be a lower benefit than expected. Now, I don't know any politician who's going to run on that campaign. We're going to give you less retirement in your Social Security benefit. There are things that they can do. So it's important that you speak with. I would say it's important to speak with your elected officials and let them know your opinions, that they need to take care of it, they need to do something. It's not fair for those of us who will be retiring in the future to not get the full
fair share.
benefit, right? So there's things that can be done. I think there's some smart people out there that can fix it. Let's just hope that we can elect those people that will. So I'll leave it at that.
No, that's a good addition. And I think that's top of mind for a lot of people. So, thank you. So, step one, as we're looking at kind of our retirement journey, or the Social Security plan, determine how long to work. This is an important one. I'd love to be done working right now. Just last week I was telling my wife that, but that's just not reasonable. So, again, when I said that to my wife, it was very emotional. I mentioned earlier, as much as we can, we need to make this a logical decision, because this is going to affect us for the next 20, 30, 40 years, right? So it's tempting to go with your gut. It's important to balance that emotions with logic on this one. A lot of things affect how long you'll work. The first we mentioned is your current job situation. Think of different things that could either keep you at your job or push you away. Maybe you're contractually bound to teach for another 2 or 3 years. Maybe you work in a laborious job, and your body says, I can't do 10 more years of this. All of this needs to be included in your plan. Again, so health ties right into that one, but also the health of others, your family, other outside influences. Maybe you have to, step away because your wife gets sick and you need to take care of her, or the wife needs to take care of the husband or another family member, right? So is your industry volatile that layoffs could be coming, always top of mind? So there's a lot of factors that play into this how long should I work question. As many of those as we can attack logically, we need to, because it's easy to let our emotions take over when determining how long to work. And I'm sure if you guys are like me, the sooner the better. We'd like to retire now. The second step, consider when to claim Social Security benefits. I'm actually going to start on kind of those bottom 3 little rows there, and then we'll talk about the primary insurance amount. So the first step is to qualify for Social Security, right? How do you qualify for those benefits? Well, it goes on an earnings of credits basis. So one credit is about $1,500. As you can see on screen, you can earn up to 4 credits per year. You need 40 credits to qualify. So say 10 years of making about $6,000 a year, and then you'll be in on Social Security. That's how you qualify to be part. Those do not have to be 10 consecutive years or 40 consecutive credits, I would say, to my knowledge. So let's say you took a year off, a hiatus, traveled, whatever it may be. That doesn't mean that you have to completely restart. So keep that in mind. Once you have earned those credits, you're taking part in Social Security. That primary insurance amount, so that top row that you're seeing, it's a complex equation, but to simplify it, it's your highest 35 years of earnings, and that does have to be consecutive. So let's say you took a few years off and then came back in, so you end up working, say, 45 years. It's the highest 35 consecutive of those 40 years. Again, a little bit more complex than that, but that's the simplest way to do it. It's 35 years of earnings, and then that's how we calculate your primary insurance amount that you'll get at your full retirement age. Speaking of full retirement age, on screen is a little graph showing, depending on your birth year, there is some variance in full retirement age. In short, full retirement age equals when you qualify for 100% of that benefit. Again, that primary insurance amount that's calculated with your 35 highest years of earnings. For most of us in this room, we might be born after 1960, so it'll be 67 years old. Pre-1960, so between, call it 54 and 1960, you're looking at a varying range of between 66 and 67 years old. And again, this is just if you retired, or I should say claimed Social Security on that exact birth date, you would get that full primary insurable amount. You can take Social Security earlier or later than your full retirement age, though. So we have a graph here on screen. This assumes a full retirement age of 66 years old. You can claim sooner. For every month you claim before that 66th birthday, there's going to be a decrease in your primary income amount, right? So we'll decrease the benefit you receive each month from Social Security. You could take up to 4 years early at age 62. If you did so, you'd only get 75% of your full retirement benefit, right? So you'd be taking less income in return for taking that income sooner. You can also defer, and it can really juice up the income, if you will. So if you defer all the way out, 4 years on the other end, you can see a 32% increase to your full retirement amount, right? So up to age 70, you can defer. Each month you defer, you'll see a fraction that increases your primary benefit, and that'll be your paycheck, if you will. Some things worth noting, and I do want to point to how important this decision is. It's largely irreversible. There's a couple of options. If you claim Social Security, especially if you're quick to correct, it's possible to kind of get a redo, if you will. Again, I'll touch on two right now. The first is called request a do-over, so it is a literal redo. This has to be within the first 12 months of filing, and it's only if you file early. So in this case, before 66 years old, but it's difficult. You'd have to take a lump sum and give that back to the Social Security Administration of the entirety of the benefit they gave to you. So basically, you wouldn't have had to touch the funds or have enough funds on the sideline to be able to give back everything they gave to you. Again, that's in the first 12 months of filing. You can also suspend your benefits. So this is after full retirement age, in this case 66. You can essentially pause your benefits, and they will go back into that increasing amount. Those will automatically be turned on for you at age 70 unless you turn those back on sooner. So options, I suppose, if you do decide you want to change when you take Social Security, but it's difficult. It's not something I would necessarily advise, I suppose. The third step, consider how your marital status impacts your Social Security claim. I'll keep this one brief, but it's important for a few reasons. First off, you want to maximize your claim as a couple, right? Especially for sharing expenses. And to do that, you really do need to look at each of you. You don't have to claim at the same time. I think that could be another myth. You may expect that you have to claim at the same time as a married couple. That's not the case. You could have one spouse claim sooner and then another later. So another wrinkle into that plan, which is why it's so important to talk to experts on this one. But not only that, consider if you passed away before your spouse, right? What the benefit that she still receives or he still receives if you were to pass away. Or again, what if only one spouse qualifies? So then you've got to keep that in mind. If only one spouse qualifies, there is something called a spousal benefit. So a spousal benefit, as simplified as I can make it, is a spouse received the higher of their full retirement, benefit, or half of their spouse's benefit at their spouse's full retirement age. So the higher of your own or half of your spouse's would be spousal benefit in like a quick little summary. Surviving spouses, I'll touch on this one quickly, and I wanted to put these bullet points on slide, but for someone who, again, their spouse passed away, there is benefits that they would receive from the Social Security Administration. Same with divorced spouses. There's some guidelines that you have to meet, but there is some benefit that you could receive if you were part of that situation. I'll give another second to take photos of the screen because I see some of us are. Awesome. The fourth step, to me, this is one of the least fun because taxes aren't fun, but planning for taxes is important. If anything, what we want to do is limit the amount of taxes that we pay so we can maximize the benefit that we receive from not only Social Security, but the other funds that we pull from in retirement. So If Social Security is your only source of income, it's tax-free. That's a tax-free benefit. Rarely is that the case. In most cases, we have other sources of income. You see them listed on the screen. We say wages, pension if you're lucky enough to have one, other retirement accounts or investment accounts you're pulling income from. To quickly run through the calculation, again, I'm trying to simplify things that aren't that simple. Social Security isn't simple. But you want to calculate your total retirement income, for example, add together all the things on the left side. Then add in half of your benefit amount, so your Social Security amount. If that number for joint filers, spouses, is higher than $32,000, up to 50% of your benefits are taxable. If that number is higher than $44,000 for joint filers, then up to 85% is taxable. Those numbers are kind of staggering, to hear. Having 85% of my Social Security be taxable doesn't sound fun. That's why this is such an important thing to plan for and why it needs to be its own step in the Social Security and retirement planning process, is talking about how the taxes of everything you're withdrawing are going to affect the amount that you get. So there's a lot to consider in Social Security. An important thing to do is prepare a budget. Basically, we talk about saving a lot. We need to know how much to save for. The first step in that is preparing a budget. First off, define your goals in retirement, and I want to emphasize, be as specific as you can as you're defining these goals. I love to travel, a lot of us might, but there's a difference between, you've got beautiful state parks in this state. I grew up in Iowa, a lot more elevation change here. It's awesome. I really enjoy it. But there's a difference between driving around the state parks of Utah or saying I want to go to Paris and visit the Eiffel Tower in terms of expenses. So define your goals in preparing a budget and be specific, especially when you're talking with a third party, an expert. Let them know what you desire in retirement so that you know what to plan for. In defining your goals, you're going to be able to estimate your spending, right? There's more than just the fun things like travel. There's also mortgage, rent, healthcare, utilities, car loan, there's all the credit card payments. A lot of things go in to estimating your spending. The more specific we can be, the more accurate the plan can be, and the more confident we can be in retirement. So a budget, I can't emphasize how important a budget is. And then coordinate with savings. Again, there's a lot of different income that we'll have as we're retiring. Social Security is an important part of it, but hopefully it's not the only part of our savings. So maybe there's other forms of guaranteed income. I mentioned a pension earlier. There's other products that you can buy that give a guaranteed stream of income that you can't outlive. Savings and investments. So a lot of us may have a 401k through work. Maybe we have our own retirement accounts, an IRA or a Roth IRA, for example. As you start to draw those down, that's another form of income. Maybe, life insurance. That's another one that is very tax advantaged. One thing to keep in mind, if you're drawing from your life insurance, that will change the death benefit. So if that's your legacy play, keep in mind that drawing that down will leave less as a legacy. And then once you've got all of this kind of figured out, your savings and how much income you can produce with Social Security included, assess the gap. So I think this is an important thing to touch on. Assess the gap between the amount of money we need and what, through these devices and anything else, we can produce. If we're not able to produce as much as we need to find some way to solve that gap. Otherwise, you're going to have to give up some things in retirement, and we really don't want to do that. We want to travel to Paris and see the Eiffel Tower. And then step 7, again, from working with Breck and other financial professionals, it's important to consult someone who does this every single day. Retirement is this big, hairy monster that I've said a few times, but having a plan can make it much less scary. You know what you're getting into, and this is what they do every single day. We don't have the time for some of us who aren't, professionals, financial professionals. So work with them, review the goals and plans that we've talked about making today. Ask them to help you make this plan because they know how to do that. Assess, again, I mentioned the gaps. We want to close that gap between the amount of money we need and what we can produce with what we have right now so we can enjoy retirement as we've planned. And then look at options for guaranteed income streams. Obviously, Social Security is probably the most important version of a guaranteed income stream. And when you do all this, you're going to feel so much better about your retirement. The peace of mind is the last bullet, but it's probably the most important. Having, that fear off your back is so important. And then before we do our closing steps, again, inflation and specifically in healthcare costs, it's hard to overstate how important this is. The numbers on there are pretty staggering. Especially if you look at a 45-year-old couple, you're looking at probably $1.5 million of out-of-pocket costs for healthcare over the course of the rest of your life. It's a significant sum of money. Again, this kind of things is just to highlight why it's so important to make a plan, work the plan, and have a professional to help out with that. So as we're closing, before we open it up for questions, some next steps. First off, I mentioned that Social Security has a website. Make an account. It's not necessarily something that's going to give advice, but it's good information. You can see a monthly statement, see an estimated benefit, things like that. So it's just great information to have, and we can never have enough information. Consider Social Security claiming as part of an overall plan. Again, it's not the only part of your plan, so it's very important to consider this amongst all of the other income they're going to be drawing down from. And then lastly, I say let's talk. Don't talk to me, talk to an expert like Breck, because they know a lot more than me. And actually with that, I'll open it up for questions. That was a lot to throw at you, so hopefully you have some questions. If you wrote anything down, please. And Breck, I'll have you come up and answer these with me because I think that you may be able to answer better than I can.
Will you go back to that last slide?
Yeah.
So before we jump into the questions, there's
This one here?
Yeah, this one. So the online Social Security account. I'm sure a lot of you are getting the letter that you get every January, February, estimating what your benefit is. But the advantage of going in and setting up an account at ssa.gov is you get to play with it a little bit more. It's more interactive. And you can see live what the estimated benefit is going to be. So maybe 62 years is when you turn 62 years old. Maybe you do want to retire then. Well, you can go into that website and you can say, okay, what is my estimated benefit going to be? But what if I waited 6 more months? What would that do to my benefit? And is that opportunity cost worth it to save? Is that benefit and waiting that extra 6 months to a year, maybe 18 months, is that going to fill that gap that we talked about? So I would highly recommend it for that. And the next, I would say, maybe Social Security Administration can be wrong. It happens. Maybe they've miscalculated your benefit. Because if they give you too much, they're going to ask for it back plus interest. If they give you too little and they owe you more, they'll give you what they owe but without interest. Of course.
Yeah.
So it's important to go in and verify what your benefit is based on what your income has been over your career. Make sure you're getting the right benefit. I can't overstate that. Yes. Now let's open it up for questions. We went through a lot. There's a couple, if you guys don't have questions, there's a couple of other things I want to go back to.
Go to any slide. If anyone wants to go to any slide, let me know. And I
I'm
can pull
just
those up.
curious, so if you pay into Social Security your whole working career, right? Let's say you have a Roth IRA,
Mhm.
right, and you pay into that for your working career. And so you start to draw down after-tax dollars from your Roth IRA, $30,000 a year, let's say. And you're at 100% benefit on Social Security. Am I gonna get taxed, double taxed basically on Social Security?
You know what's amazing about a Roth IRA is when you draw from a Roth IRA, it's one of the only accounts, there's a few out there, but it's one of the only accounts that does not count towards taxable income. So it will not affect your Social Security benefit.
Cash under the
As long as
mattress.
it's clear the air.
Yeah,
That's
it's a good question.
That's one of those one-offs.
So, yeah,
Life insurance can produce non-taxable income that will not affect your Social Security. Okay, so planning now for, before retirement and putting as much into these buckets is really, really helpful when it comes to retirement income planning.
Great question.
If I receive a pension, how does that affect receiving Social Security?
Okay, so a pension is taxable income. It's reportable taxable income. Now, if you are at full retirement age, so FRA, you're going to want to remember that acronym, full retirement age. Whatever that is to you, if you start taking your Social Security benefit before your full retirement age and you get a pension, and maybe you're taking money from an IRA as well or a 401k, that will all contribute towards your taxable income and can affect your Social Security. Okay, so that's the key here is once you are at full retirement age, then you can make as much income as you want, and the tax, the extra tax is going to go away. So it's really important if you're going to take your Social Security benefit before, and for most of you, it's probably going to be 67
Yep,
and
67.
10 months. If you do before, if you retire and you take your Social Security benefit before then these sources of income that you have can affect, it may not be worth it to take your Social Security benefit if you're going to if you're going to retire and take your pension,
Yeah.
right? So you have to consider all of that in your planning.
So then, once you hit full retirement age, you can make as much money as you want and your Social Security is not taxed, is that what you're saying?
Well, it'll be taxed at normal income tax rates. So whatever your income tax bracket is you'll pay
Added to
normal,
your income.
Just taxable.
yes, normal taxable income. I just lost my train of thought.
One thing I was going to add in, because I feel like it kind of fits in with your question there, you don't have to take Social Security at full retirement age, right? There's optionality here, and just because you retire doesn't mean that you immediately have to turn on Social Security. In some cases, if only for considering tax implications and minimizing the taxes paid, maybe you dip into more of your 401k right after retirement and then defer Social Security for 3 more years. And that takes it from 100% and you're at, 124%? And then that's a more tax efficient plan, and that's lifetime guaranteed income, Social Security, at a higher amount. So that's something I meant to touch on earlier and just didn't. Just because you're retired, you don't have to take Social Security. Just because you're full retirement age doesn't mean you have to retire or have to take Social Security. The claiming decision is a little more nuanced than that, and that's where it's important to consider working with someone like this, because Breck could point out, hey, you can retire today, but maybe we still wait 3 more years to turn on Social Security because it's going to maximize that claim you have.
Yeah, so let me just specify that.
Yeah.
Once you're full retirement age and you defer it till you're 70, every year you wait, that's a guaranteed 8% increase. There's nowhere in the market right now that I can guarantee you an 8% growth rate on your income. So that can be a powerful tool in your retirement income planning. So
But you have to start claiming them before you turn 70.
yeah, on your 70th birthday,
Just turns on, right?
it just turns on. They're gonna start sending you checks in the mail if you don't set up an automatic deposit with them. And if they send it to the wrong address, well, then
You may
that's
not
on
even
you.
know.
That's on you. You got to make sure they have the right information.
Yeah, create that account.
So
So, I feel like you guys are saying a lot about optimizing your Social Security, about deciding when to retire. I'm an accountant, so I know that this is a complex question. Is there an equation? Is this something that we need to just meet with you and be like, okay, this is what I have, this is what I have, this is my retirement, this is my idea? How do we optimize that
Yeah.
Social Security? Like, how do we arrive at that point?
there's no one easy calculation, right? Because your sources of income in your retirement are going to be specific to you.
Yeah.
Might be different for me. So we need to understand your sources of income and how we can divide those buckets up to maximize that benefit.
There's some calculator tools, if that's what you're asking. I still don't even think even those are one size fits all,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it just seems like there would have to be like an if-then equation.
Uh-huh.
If you have this, then you should do this.
Yep.
If you know what I mean, like some sort of Venn diagram. I have no idea. There's gotta be something that could help us, but it seems like maybe for like the layman, like us, like we obviously all wanna optimize the money.
Right.
How do we do
Yeah.
that? Do you know what I mean? That's my question. Is there something to meet with you? Is that just really like all
I would, I
Yes,
would
the answer
love
is yes.
that, but I would say that's right for most people, because unless they're experts and they're taking the time to go in and actually research these things, they could get something wrong. We have what's called advanced time segmentation tool that we use, and it's an amazing tool that will spell all of this out for you. and it will consider the taxes, it'll consider inflation rates, it'll consider rates of return, everything, and it will calculate down to the, within plus or minus $5 what your income will be in retirement.
So to arrive at that magical, like, optimize the social security benefits, we would need to know what our, income would be in retirement, is that?
Yes.
Is that what we're pivoting around?
Because the tax consequences, right? You being an accountant know that very well. That doesn't change when you retire.
Right.
And it's more important than ever because we likely have less tax deductions to take when we're retired. Mortgages are paid off, don't have children living with us, maybe we're not running a business anymore and we can't take all these really cool tax deductions anymore. So these tax consequences, why would I take my Social Security if it's just gonna get taxed 55% or 85%? That's crazy. There's no need, right? So your sources of income will matter greatly. If you have a Roth IRA, you can kick that on right now and it's not going to cause any problems to your tax situation or your Social Security benefit. Other questions? We'll go here and then to you.
For them receiving an automatic check at 7 years old, where does the responsibility lie where your current address is?
You have to supply it. So I don't even know where they initially get that information.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
Maybe where they like mail your tax return, something like that.
Maybe.
I mean, it's probably something in the taxes
Yeah.
when attached to your Social Security number, you have this address for tax purposes. That'd be my best guess. I don't know for certain.
That's a good question. Never had that one before.
Yeah.
As a follow-up, what happens when there's a massive database on people's social security numbers and somebody's hijacks your identity? How is that?
So that's a unique fraud situation. You would need to contact the authorities. You need to contact Social Security Administration. They're going to have a process that you have to go through to verify your identity and verify that it was actually sent to someone else. They will have to correct all that. If they can, if they're sending a check, the good thing about a check is even if it's been drawn on, they can, if it's done in a certain amount of time, they can pull those funds back from that bank who it was drawn on. So you can get your money back. So if that happens, I would recommend getting to the Social Security Administration and letting them know that that happened as soon as possible.
Any other question?
Right here.
Yeah, if you're already on social security benefits, which I am, how do I know if I'm getting the maximum out of it? Because I've been on it for quite a few years now. And, back then when I started, they said, well, here's here's what it's gonna be, and every year you get a little bit of adjustment. How do I know that there's not a little bit more down there in the key?
Well, you will have to go based on what you made in your working careers, and there is a calculation that will help you determine what your benefit is going to be, and verify if it's close.
I would say the
Well,
Social
that's
Security
also-
website.
That's also
Yeah.
a risk of opening Pandora's box. They find out they've been paying
Give
you
you
more, and they're gonna want it back.
They're a lot more inclined to know that they've overpaid you, I think, as the government. I mean, Uncle Sam wants our money whenever they can get their hands on it.
The nice thing, you've been paying those taxes your whole life in payroll, or if you're self-employed, then you're paying self-employment taxes, and that's all calculated through the IRS. So they've been tracking all of this your whole life. It'll be rare that they get it wrong, but it does happen. You just don't want it to be you. Yeah. So plan beforehand. Over here, and then we'll come to you guys up here.
Just a question, you're talking a lot about the Roth versus 401Ks because the Roth isn't taxable.
Right.
So how hard is it to change your 401Ks into a Roth?
It's called a backdoor Roth IRA. And you can convert traditional 401k assets and individual retirement account assets to an IRA or a Roth IRA. When you do that, the amount that you convert is taxable that year when you do it. Okay, so if you do too much, it can bump you into a new tax bracket, and now you're paying too much taxes. So you got to plan that out. And then there's a rule that the IRS imposes. It's amazing.
So many rules.
If you convert from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, there's a clock, a 5-year clock that starts. If you withdraw the converted dollars for retirement, anytime in that first 5 years, they tack on an additional 10% penalty. So if you convert from a traditional to a Roth, you have to wait 5 years and plan on that before you take any income, because you don't want to pay a 10% penalty. I don't want to. So you have to plan. You have to plan for it. That's what I'm saying.
Very individualized question.
Oh, and then up here.
How does retirement from another country affect the retirement in the US? Do you have two options?
I'm not
I'm
sure.
sure it's considered taxable income. Again,
Yeah.
if Uncle Sam can say you've got income to tax, I'm sure he will try to.
Yeah.
But I can't say I know that one. Yeah, but I'm sure it
I
probably
have
goes in your
to
income
defer
equation.
that to an accountant, because I'm not first of all, I'm not a CPA, so I can't give you legal tax advice.
It depends on what state you retire in.
Okay.
Because there
Oh,
are
wow.
certain states that are not taxable, so, or a lot lower, so Florida is popular because
Yeah.
it's a great
No-
weather,
no
it's
state
also a
income
very
tax.
low tax state. Nevada is a
No.
very tax state, so people have names to Florida that way.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks for your input.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Some free advice from an accountant. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah.
I know, guys, the brother made a jewelry. He told me that she stopped making jewelry to pay for Social Security, but then she changed her mind, started her jewelry again, and then, so how does that, affect her, earning, her social earning, if she goes back and forth?
It all depends on how she's taking income from the business. If she's paying herself a W-2 wage, then that's going to be considered taxable income. The advantage of having a business is you get to kind of dictate how you take income. So it depends on how she's paying herself.
Okay, so for instance, just curious, like if she took it at 62 and then decided at 64, does she lose her percentage somehow, or is it still the same?
She won't lose her benefit won't be reduced. But if she has another source of income that's coming in and she's taking too much, we go to that where
The tax page. Yeah.
So if she takes too much income and she's receiving that Social Security benefit and she's not at full retirement age, then up to, if she's single, she can only make $25,000 in taxable income. Otherwise, every dollar that she gets in the Social Security benefit, 50 cents of every dollar is going to get taxed.
And this is only after age 62?
This is at 62 and up to your full retirement age.
So let's say if you're 70 or over, and you still, let's say you have some income from wherever, then that's not taxable after 70?
It is taxable. It is taxable. But if you're full retirement age or older, then they won't tack on this additional tax on your Social Security. It'll just get taxed
Regular tax.
regular income tax.
We're over here to the left.
Right here.
Could you just spend a minute on the spouse connection, I guess?
Sure.
I guess one being if one is much greater than the other spouse, what some of the options are.
So
Or if there are.
spousal benefits can be complicated, but in general, if a wife, or I should say a spouse, sorry, there's the breadwinner who made the most, who has the higher benefit, and maybe the other spouse doesn't have, maybe she didn't work, or that spouse didn't work long enough to get full credits. They can take up to half of the higher earning spouse's benefit. Okay?
In lieu of their,
Correct.
own.
they would.
So they have a choice. If their benefit is less than half of the higher earning spouse's benefit, they can choose to take the spousal benefit. If their benefit is higher than half of the spousal benefit, they can choose to take their own. Okay.
I have a question on that, but at what age can the spouse get half?
So, if, if the spousal benefit, if the spouse is not at full retirement age, then it's a prorated amount.
Similar to your own. The earlier you take it, the more reduced the amount will be, I guess, is a good rule
Yeah.
of thumb.
So to get the full half, it has to be full retirement age.
Correct.
So if they took it earlier than that, would it change?
Mhm.
Would it stay
It'll be less. Like you said, the earlier you take your benefits, the less you'll get.
And it's your age, not the spouse.
Correct. If they're taking the spousal benefit, it's based on the age of the spouse. So it can get really messy.
A lot of
Divorces add complications to it. If they die, it can add complications to it. If you have dependents, if you have adult children that you have to take care of, all of these things apply, and it can change the benefit and it can affect the benefit. So there's no easy answer. That's why every single situation is so important that you get into it into the weeds.
your
You
own
have to
plan.
get into the weeds in your own plan, or you can make serious mistakes and you can miss out on dollars.
Yeah.
What if one spouse retires, another older one? How that affects the one who's not retired income, like, for the taxes?
It depends on how you file your taxes.
If it is joint,
If you file jointly, then, yeah, if the spouse who's still working is making too much, then your Social Security will be taxed at a higher rate. So at that case, maybe it would make sense to file separately. For that, I'd have to defer you to an accountant to determine that, because I can't give you that legal advice, that legal tax advice.
That's a good question.
So we can help you calculate it. I mean, I can do math. I can help you do that. But I can't give you legal tax advice, okay?
I have a very complicated life, so, as far as getting questions regarding divorce and death of spouse, like, how would we get that information? Is that something that I can get from, like, the Social Security
Uh-huh.
website?
Yeah, you can, they have a pretty decent search function. You can say death benefit or spousal benefit, and they'll bring up articles after articles, and it's gonna be a lot of reading.
I feel like you have a lot of experience, so just as a broad stroke, is the divorce, would it be in like the divorce decree, what decides it, or what is the legal deciding factor of the Social Security benefits? Does it refer to the Social Security? It seems like it wouldn't make sense, but maybe it does.
So definitely, if the judge says something specific in the divorce decree, that's what will be followed. But if not, there's precedent. If the marriage was at least 10 years old, the divorcing spouse can claim benefit and can get up to half of their Social Security benefit. So that's the only requirement, is you have to have been married for at least 10 years, and the spouse who was divorced, who is no longer living with that spouse now, can now claim that benefit.
At full retirement.
but it
Yes.
doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt the spouse's
Right.
full retirement.
Correct.
Does it decrease theirs?
It doesn't
It
decrease
wouldn't
theirs.
affect, yeah.
It
No.
doesn't, they get that in addition to.
Correct.
So if a divorced spouse has a higher social security, do they claim their own social security, or the spouse is half, or do they get both?
They get both.
They get both.
If they're divorced.
Well, no.
No.
They'd
Yeah,
be-
they can choose whichever one
They
is
can choose
higher.
the
Yeah, whichever one is higher.
So they don't
So
get
the
the ball.
bars is similar.
Yes.
One more over here too.
They actually told me that you can plan both.
Is it the higher of the two, probably? At the same
Um,
time, as in consecutively your own and this?
As long as, the other person made less than you did,
Sure.
then that was the case, so I both paid for them. At a certain age.
Okay.
Yeah. That's good news. And then I know we had one, I don't want to leave you.
The problem is, the people that work at the Social Security Administration, they don't know anything. We've called 4 different offices and got 4 different answers.
We really have. He said, I'm gonna try up north just to see if I get.
And so,
Yeah.
you don't know what, because they tell you, yeah, this is it, call someone else, and they tell you, no, that's not it, this is it. So we talked to 4 offices, and every answer's been different.
Yeah.
So
The
what's
website
right,
probably
what's
then.
wrong?
Yeah, the website will give you all the information you could possibly need.
They might honestly be looking through the website as they're answering your questions. I mean, think about any sort of call center that you call into.
Now, we talked to 2 different people in the
Mhm.
same office,
Oh,
and
jeez.
the answers were different.
Yeah.
So, we don't know what to do. No. Well, if you have a complicated question, you'll get a different answer every time you talk.
Mm-hmm.
At least in our experience. So, we didn't get an answer.
Where do you go? Like, who would be an expert at this, or who would be?
Well,
I'm
that's,
an accountant, and I'm like, this is really not something I understand.
yeah,
A lot of rules.
yeah. That's honestly what we do. Most financial advisors, most of them will be very well versed in Social Security, and how to plan for it.
Even if it's like way off in the weeds, cause I have like some really like crazy circumstances where like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to do about this.
Yeah. Well, if they don't know, if I don't know an answer, then I have resources that I can just call and get those answers.
Yeah, one more in the corner too.
Over,
Yeah, okay.
I was gonna say that I got some answers when I went to the Social Security offices in Orange.
Mhm.
And I was able to ask many questions, and I would say they answered, I think, like 90% of the questions.
okay, good. Well, I think we're right at an hour. We're gonna hang out for a little bit, so if you wanna hang out and talk, that's fine. If you want to meet with me, fill out that sheet, and we will contact you and set up a meeting.
The next meeting's on the screen.
And put them right up here. And if you want to stay around for the raffle,
Stay
please
around.
do.
Next meeting's on the screen also. About a month.
Thank you.
Applause after. Usually that's more earned than the before.
Do you meet on Fridays?
I do.
Awesome. That'll work for me.
Okay. In fact, here,